$470 billion. That's the amount of contributions donated by Americans in 2020 alone. That's huge.
The data is showing that only 6% of our members are turning into donors. So why is that?
Today, we're going to share some tips and resources to help you accelerate your donations. Welcome to the Changemaker session, leveraging a 360 view to accelerate donations. My name is Darshell Sawyers, a product manager here at Daxko.
And I'm Crystal from Montana. I'm a client executive here at Daxko, but I've been around for a while, always on the customer service side. So I'm really excited to share some of the insights that we've been able to glean over the last few years.
2020 was all about survival. I talked to several of our customers that had to close their doors, lay off staff, and end several of their programs. 2021 was all about recovery. Many of you were able to bring back your staff, open your doors again, and start your programs and childcare offerings that you had in the past. Now, 2022, we are all about thriving. How can we help you do that? If we take a look at the health and wellness space before COVID, about 1 in 4 Americans belong to a health club, studio, or gym. We saw a steady increase of membership and revenue over the years. In fact, of the members who belong to a health club or studio, on average, they were keeping their memberships for about 4.5 years. And then COVID happened. We saw COVID have a direct impact on membership. In fact, about 33% of memberships were terminated within the first 12 months of COVID. If we fast forward and compare that to March of 2022, about 44% of memberships are still terminated. We know that COVID had a direct effect on your offerings and your engagement with members. As we can see on this graph, as COVID trends continue to trend upwards, our memberships were directly affected. At the start of the pandemic, there were about 4.5 million active units. Fast forward to March of 2022, about 1.3 million units were deactivated. So what does that mean for the total revenue loss between 2020 and 2021? Well, we estimate about $4 billion of revenue. So think about your membership terminations, your program and childcare offerings. All of that was impacted by COVID.
So we've talked a lot about what the last couple of years has looked like, but let's talk about where we are today. So when we look across the entirety of our customer base and even beyond, we're at about 80% recovered. But if you're sitting on this Zoom and you're thinking, I am absolutely not 80% recovered, you are crazy, let's talk about it a little bit. So if we go into kind of a breakdown of what this revenue really looks like and how we're coming back, on the far right side of this graph, it's showing who are the most recovered. Maybe they're over 100% or they're at that 80% mark. And really what's interesting about this is these are customers, nonprofits that are smaller in scale in comparison to those that are on the left side of the graph that have not fully recovered. And so as we start thinking about why that might be, for one, a lot of larger associations and agencies are located in larger metropolitan areas. So they were hit a lot harder by the pandemic. They weren't able to open as quickly. And just in general, they had their constituents and their members were hit a lot harder. They also weren't able to have access to those really early PPP loans. And also there's just a sense of connection that a local community has with their J or their Y or nonprofit in their area, that a lot of them, when they said, okay, I know that your facility isn't open and I don't have access to my membership, but just convert that into a donation. And so we were able to recover quite a bit faster there, but we're on our way. So let's dig in even deeper to see how we've recovered by revenue pillars or by categories. So on the next slide, you'll see that pledges are fully recovered. I personally was surprised by that when I first saw this data, but when Darshell starts digging into the national trends here in just a few minutes, it's going to make a lot more sense, and it made sense to me. But you guys probably had to lower or discount your prices for membership. Maybe you couldn't have a full program or childcare. You had to limit your capacity. And so a lot of this is just taking time to recover from a couple of years of not having full capacity. But the community impact that a nonprofit has in a small community or a large one even is never more seen and evident than in the midst of a crisis and chaos. So the fact that there were more people in need, more people needed access to health and wellness and food and community, we were able to really show that off in the last couple of years, or you all were able to, and the pledges here show that everyone connected with that. So let's dig in a little bit deeper into what this looks like across the nation.
So when we take a look at national giving trends, we notice that about 40% of donors continue to give to the same organizations that they had in the past, while 25% of donors gave to new nonprofits as a result of the pandemic. So it really shows that people wanted to give and wanted to contribute during one of the worst pandemics in history. As a result of all of that giving, there was about $471 billion in contributions in 2020. That is huge. It really shows that people wanted to continue to give and help where they could. If we take a closer look at those contributions and see who made up that total, we can see that majority of that giving was done by individuals, while another large percent of those contributions came from foundations. What stood out to me here is that there was a 17% increase by foundations from 2019. It's really significant in telling that story about why people give and the impact that their giving makes. When we take a closer look at contribution from Daxko customers, on average, about 6% of active units will ever donate in their lifetime. And out of that 6%, only half of those people will become a second-time donor. So why is that? What's limiting the movement?
Right. There's clearly a lot of dollars floating around. So why is that 6% so low in comparison to other nonprofits? And really the answer to that is data. And I know you might be thinking, oh my gosh, this is Daxko person. Of course, they love data. That's all they talk about. But really, as I was digging in and preparing for this presentation, I started talking to my friends and colleagues who are looking or do currently give to a nonprofit. And I was asking them, how do you go about choosing who you donate to? And the conversations always came back to two main things. One was, do my values align with this organization? And are they making a positive impact in the community or the world, depending on how big they were looking? And if you're sitting on this webinar, you're probably thinking, okay, well, check and check. My organization is incredible. We do great things in our community and we have incredible values. But the question that you should be asking is, what are the values that your prospect has? Do you know what they are? That's the level of data that we're looking at. And what does a positive impact look like to this person that you're hopefully talking to and soliciting a donation from? Because one person might be really involved and care a lot about aquatic safety, and they want to be sure that any child that falls into a pool is able to get out safely. Or maybe this person really cares about the environment and they want to make sure that the earth is around for generations to come. And so what are we doing to impact that and to educate the world on how to take care of our home? Those are two very different talk tracks and very different conversations that have to happen. And if you don't know enough about the person that you're talking to know which avenue to go down, maybe it's something completely different, that is going to hurt you in the long run. So that's the kind of data that we're talking about. And what this really means is you want a 360-degree view of your donor. And so as we started thinking about, okay, they probably understand, we definitely understand the impact that having this 360 view can have. And honestly, as someone who's been around for a few years, I've heard this 360 view mentioned quite a few times. And so I started thinking, and we were brainstorming, what does this even mean? How do you get to this 360 view? And so we came up with a few questions. And so I'm wondering if y'all have answers to these off the top of your head. So first is, what are your highest performing sources of donations? Does it match what the national trends are that Darshell talked about before? Is it 69% individuals? Or is it new foundations and new organizations that are in your area? Maybe you have a new company that's looking to make a huge impact in the community that they just came into. What does that breakdown look like? Because that's how you really know how you target them and what the communication looks like. The next question is, what membership trends directly correlate to giving? So this is especially important if you are one of those organizations that has a lot of individuals that give, even if it's major gifts. But this is a tough one to answer, right? Because there's a lot of different avenues that someone could take as far as actions are concerned that might indicate future behavior. So am I an adult now and I turn into a family membership, and then I suddenly see the huge impact that this organization has on my family and I want to extend that to other families? Or is it something totally different? And this one's hard, right? Because you probably have hundreds or thousands of people that you would need to look at individually to know, okay, they did this, and then 3 months later they did this, but was that because of they changed their membership, or was it because of something else? And so my question for you is, does your software give you the ability to look into these trends, and where do you find that? If you don't know and you're on Daxko, we can help answer that. And then the last question is, how effective is the communication your audience receives? So going back to those discussions about which avenue do you take and what are the conversations that you're having based on someone's persona or what matters to them, is the level of communication changes and alters as time progresses, as they're more interested in certain things, as their age changes, and also the method that you communicate with them also alters and changes too. So when we're talking about the effectiveness, then it comes back to, are you tracking your data? Do you know if you send an email at this time, that's a good thing? If you're sending a text, how often are they being opened? Those are the questions that these three you should immediately know the answers to.
So how can you be successful? Well, we believe that it starts with having a 360 view of your donors. So let's talk about what leveraging that 360 view actually means. Knowing and trusting your data. Crystal asked a great question. What membership trends directly correlate to giving at your association? It's not enough to simply collect data, but having actionable data on your members, trends, and their behaviors is going to help you make decisions in the future. Another part of knowing and trusting your data is being able to easily identify who your donors are. What if at the click of a button, you could easily identify who was most likely to give? Well, with Daxko Engage's predictive analytics, you can do just that. It is really easy for you to determine who your donors are and who is most likely or less likely to give. Once you've determined who your donors are, you can go a step further by segmenting your communication. Daxko Engage's data-driven groups will help you identify who your donors are so that you can then take action. You're communicating with donors, you're pushing out marketing efforts, but do you have visibility into how successful those marketing efforts are? And are you able to track the success of your campaigns? Google Analytics can help you track and determine how successful your campaigns are so that you can plan for the future. You need access to accurate pledge revenue data so that you can track campaign goals, get future revenue insight, and help you make informed decisions about your campaigns. Grants make up a huge part of your story and your impact. You can understand the impact and tell your story better by tracking and recording your grant revenue. If I asked you how well the association down the road or across the country was doing in comparison to yours, how easy is it for you to find that information? Would you have to call a friend? Well, with performance analytics, this is information that you would have at your fingertips. Compare your association among others by revenue size, number of branches, or even location.
Data doesn't matter a whole lot unless you use it and turn it into information, right? So we're going to leverage our 360 view of donors to make sure that our message lands. So this next slide here is, if anyone out there is a marketing person, this probably looks pretty familiar, but the whole idea here is this is a buyer's decision-making process, and kind of as they move through the process, their needs change. And so in the beginning, it's all about awareness and making sure that they know who the Y is, who the J is, whatever nonprofit. We've got to make sure that they know who you are and what you stand for. And then as they move forward in their buying process, they are now considering saying, okay, maybe I do want to donate, or this seems kind of cool. And then your message changes throughout. So we understand your needs. We know that you want to make an impact. You want to be a part of something bigger than yourself. And then as they move through and now they're like, okay, maybe I do want to purchase. Then not only do we know what your needs are and that you want to make an impact, here's the ways that we can solve that problem for you and we can help you make an impact. And then once they're in that final stage, then here's specifically what we do with the dollars that are given to us to ensure that that impact is felt not only in our community, but across the world through the earth or in safety or whatever the case may be, whatever's important to them. And then once they make that final decision, then it's all about retention, right? I'm talking to a lot of people right now about donor retention, and let's turn that 3% into 50% so that half of everyone is a second time donor instead of just 3%, right? So the idea is just as someone is progressing through and the actions that they're taking in their behavior means your message changes. So let's talk about how software can help with that. So in Daxko Engage currently, or for the longest time, it has been a marketing tool, right? You build emails, text messages, and you deliver that to a group, a very well segmented group. But as we were just talking about, depending on what your target is, especially if it's for a specific buying decision, their needs from a messaging standpoint changes throughout the process. So in the very beginning, in that stage one, that's all about nurturing their interest. And we know that you want to make an impact, and we understand you, and this is what our nonprofit can do for that. And then they move to that next stage. Maybe they have filled out some kind of web form on your website that Daxko Operations has. They fill it out and they say, yeah, I think I want to learn more about this. Maybe I do want to donate. So then your messaging changes a little bit. Maybe you have someone on your staff reach out to them. Maybe you have very targeted emails sent out or text messages. And then they finally make that decision. Yep, I think I do really want to donate. And now it's all about, okay, here's how you donate, and moving them through that final buying process. So lead management, which is new to Daxko Engage, is going to allow you to have that kind of flexibility. So let's talk about what this looks like in the real world, if you will. So in the very beginning, we have the YMCA of Greater Cincinnati here has great social media ads. And so they're building awareness. So Daxko now has a digital marketing agency built into Daxko. We know the Y, we know the J, we know how to speak on behalf of y'all so that it sounds like the voice that you're hoping to share without you having to spend all of your time and money and dollars on getting all of that right. So we build the awareness out, and then someone moves into that consideration phase. So now we have an email template from Daxko Engage, which again, we know how to build it out. We've been working with nonprofits for 20 years. So we have an email template that's sent to them. And then they finally make that decision. Yep, I think I do want to purchase. And now we utilize artificial intelligence through Daxko to really deliver a personalized one-on-one message with this person, this prospect, to show them, hey, I really matter. They are taking time out of a J staff member's time or a Y staff member's time to email me or text with me to get me more information or to show me how to make a donation on the website. There's a link right here, and they're able to follow up. This person never takes sick days. There's no onboarding really. You don't have to pay for their insurance. It's just right there built out for you. And so that's kind of how we can see that being built in the real world with moving through someone's buying personas and buying practices. So I know we mentioned email templates right there and a couple of times. So let me talk about that in case you don't know. Daxko Engage throughout the years, again, over 20 years of experience, we've learned what works and what doesn't. So we know what has the highest ROI, what the wording is, what the cadence is. And so we have built out over 100 branded best practice email templates. And this is YMCA branded here, but there are others as well. So you're able to, instead of, again, having to spend a lot of your time, and I know right now it's always been the case, but especially post-pandemic with all the staffing issues, it seems like every person I've talked to lately has added at least one hat, more like 5 in the last couple of years, onto their already existing crazy responsibilities. So no one has time to build out an entire email and text initiative. So instead, we build it out for you, and you can just make a couple of edits if you've got an event coming or something that makes more sense in your specific community. Again, just trying to save time and deliver the message so that it really lands. And then this last section here about communication is really all about meeting your prospects where they are. So email is great. I get tons of emails. I open them and read tons of them. But if you are getting a 20% open rate in your emails, you are like a marketing goddess, and we should all bow down, right? Because that's really hard to do in today's times because everyone's sending a gazillion emails. Texting is not that way yet. An 80% open rate is pretty standard for marketing texts. And so if you're not doing this right now, you're not utilizing what over 80% of North Americans have in their back pocket or in their purse at all times. So, and what's great about doing this through a software package is instead of you having to text from your personal device or your staff members having to, for one, it's all sent from a YMCA, short text so that it's all coming from the same place. But also, who's communicating back and forth. Are they speaking with the voice that you want? Are they following up in an appropriate amount of time? What if they leave? Does the entire conversation that they've had with this prospect leave with them? In Daxko Engage, that's not the case because it still exists. It's all inside of Daxko Engage. So you can pick up where they left off and really, again, meet them where they are and not have this weird kind of transition if that were to happen. And so I know we've talked a lot about communication, but now we're going to move into something even more fun that Darshell's going to dig into.
Yeah, so let's now talk about one additional way that you can leverage that 360 view, and that's by creating less friction. So when I think about friction, it's any obstacle or limitation in the way. And so we want to remove the friction when it comes to donating and those people who are making donations. One way that we can address this and remove the friction is by having targeted ask amounts or custom ask amounts. And so being able to target your audience is a part of that, but then having suggested donation amounts in that communication is another part of that. So with these new custom donation amounts, you can manage your campaigns to have totals that may be significant to that initiative. So being able to target those amounts and have those custom amounts is one way that you can reduce that friction when it comes to giving in-house or online for your members. We talked about that friction and making it easy. And a part of that is making online giving as seamless and as frictionless as possible. And so what we've done is created a new online giving form that allows your donors to manage their online gifts in a simpler way than before. And so here they're able to go in and manage their existing pledges. Donors can view and pull tax statements, and they are able to make gifts online. How many times have you gone to the grocery store or have bought or purchased something online and they're asking you to make a donation? Well, now you can have that same experience when your members or your program participants are checking out on your website. So being able to ask for gifts every time is a great opportunity for you to gain new donors and even new donation revenue. And so with the new donations during checkout feature for Daxko operations, you can ask for those gifts during the registration process. So think about the number of times that someone is registering for camp or childcare. Maybe those people have never donated before, but have been a part of your association for a long time. Well, this is a way for you to solicit those gifts from those participants. So now when a member is checking out during the make payment process, they're able to give a gift and have that in one seamless transaction. So making that process really friction-free. Another part of that is making sure that your staff is in the loop. So being able to engage with donors is vital. And so being able to allow your staff members to stay in the know through SMS text notifications is a part of that. So with the new SMS donation notifications, your staff members can be notified anytime a donation is received for the amount that you choose. So maybe you only want to be notified when a large gift is received. So you would be able to set this up in your site and receive a text message anytime a gift of a certain amount is received so that you can stay engaged. Maybe you want to follow up with a phone call or talk to that person in person. You're able to stay in the loop with the SMS text notifications.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about technology. Obviously, I love technology. What Darshell was just talking about sounds like the Amazon experience to me. But let's switch gears a little bit and talk about just this new idea of reinvented memberships. So a while back, the YMCA of Greater Houston came to us and said, we have a vision for something that's a little different. Because for years, we have had memberships over here and donations over here. And this idea is to kind of bring those two together so that even if someone, we have 4 million people in our area who don't utilize a facility and don't really plan to, but they still want to make an impact in their community. They want to be a part of our organization long term. And so we're going to offer them an impact membership. And so what that is a person comes and says, I'm going to pay you $25 a month forever. And I am in return going to be a part of the Y. And I may not have access to the facility, but I get access to feeling like I am part of something greater than myself, making an impact in the community, etc. So they had this great vision, right? But now we've got to deliver it to the community. And that can be difficult, right? We've got to make sure our message lands, it's easy and frictionless. So our Daxko digital marketing team built a website, and that's what this looks like right here. This may not look like a typical YMCA website, and that's on purpose because this is not a typical message, right? This is something larger, something different and fresh. And so we wanted to make this really well known to say, this is not just about a facility. We're not just a gym. We aren't just childcare. We are a purpose. We are making an impact. And so we built this website, and it's all connected to Daxko operations, of course, API functionality, so everyone can sign up very easily. But then we had to take it a step further and meet everyone in their area where they are. So these are a couple of examples of the marketing campaigns that we did in partnership with Houston. And this is where that data that we talked about a while ago comes back into play, right? Because is creating connections the most important thing to your constituents, or is it back to safety or helping the homeless? Is it about equity or something totally different? And so that's where we can help and get that data all together. And then we deliver this on Facebook, Google, wherever your constituents and prospects are, so that you don't have to worry about that part. You're just worried about bringing in those impact members. And so let's look at how this really looked. So over the course of a year, YMCA of Greater Houston sold about 7,700 impact memberships. So what does that mean in terms of dollars? We have math, but don't worry, we're going to make it easy. So $25 a month for a year, so 12 months times the 7,699 is $2.3 million in a year. But that's not the only value that this really provides, because remember, this is not just one-time campaign. It's not an annual campaign. They don't sign up and then I have to call them again in 2023 and say, hey, do you want to sign up again? Do you want to be an Impact member again and give $25 a month? No, this is lifetime donation. So Houston knows their data pretty well. They know that an average membership lasts 41 months. So now let's multiply that out, and the true lifetime value of this 1 year's worth of work was $7.9 million. That is quite an impact on a community. And this is obviously a huge number, but this is not some magical formula that only works for a huge organization. This was 53 times their investment. So if you are an organization that has $10,000 budget, multiply that out by 53, what is that? $250,000, something like that. I'm not great at math, so that might be wrong, but you just pull out a calculator. So let's say that it's a little over $250,000. What does that impact look like for your community? What kind of food can you give out to those who are in need? What kind of safety equipment can you provide? What kind of safety can you start talking about? What kind of wellness can you provide for those who need it? Like, what does that look like? And think about how you can put these dollars to work and know that that's just 1 year, right? This is compounding. So every year they keep doing this and keep getting better at it and deliver the data in a better way and more beautiful and more impactful. This just goes further and further. So what does this look like for you? And know that Daxko can help with this. So come to us. We are ready and so excited to make a big impact in this way if that's something that you think your organization could benefit from. So let's wrap it all up. What all did we talk about today?
Yeah, so I want to leave you with some questions. Right now, are you tracking your data, specifically around fundraising? Do you know who those personas are? Are you making sure that your message lands? Are you targeting your communication? Are you making giving as friction-free as possible? So think about your online giving process or even giving in-house. Is that something that's easy for your donors and your members to do? And lastly, have you considered reinventing your memberships? And what does that look like for your association? So we've asked tons of questions and given you all a lot to think about. So get your 360 view checklist today by scanning the QR code that's on the screen.
Yes, today it was so great sharing some insights, and hopefully you learned something. If you have any questions, our support team is always available for you at support@daxko.com, and they can get you in touch with the right people. But of course, as always, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us as well.